Hello and thank you for tuning into Answers Now. I'm your host, Kendra Lamarck, and we have a very special show for the viewers today. The crew and I have flown all around the world to get answers of people who are villains. I'm currently residing in the dorm rooms at the Skywalker Sound Building in Lucas Valley, California, where the team and I have stayed to get the necessary interviews. In the following documentary we have filmed for you, we are specifically finding the answers to the villains of the Second World War that worked in the concentration camps. We have to warn you that the following footage may be graphic and or too upsetting to watch for some viewers. I do not want to say enjoy the program because you should not enjoy other people's pain and suffering. However, on that note, we do encourage you to gain a better understanding of the monsters in the war.
Bad, destructive, nefarious, spiteful, vicious, wicked, and wrathful. These traits have one thing in common. They are descriptive words for villain. When people think of villains, specific names come to mind, like Megatron, Voldemort, or Macbeth. Even the Grinch is considered a memorable villain. Where do villains begin?
The word villain comes from the Latin word villanus, which means one attached to a farm or villa. In Old French, villanus was changed to villain, which meant someone of less knightly status and was not honorable.
The modern definition of a villain is someone whose malicious actions forward the plot. When villain is now used, it is used more in literature and film to describe the bad guy. It is not used to describe an actual person, as how the word was intended to be used.
It's hard to pinpoint the exact time where villains came into literature. While in biblical text, it could be argued that the earliest villain was the serpent that tempted Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden with all the forbidden fruit. The snake was meant to represent sin and evil. In the late 16th century, William Shakespeare used the tragic hero in many of his characters like Macbeth, Hamlet, Othello, Romeo, King Lear, and Julius Caesar. All these characters in these tragic plays play the villain of the story, yet the readers or viewers are supposed to connect with them, with the villain, because of pathos. Speaking of Shakespeare in World War II, have you ever looked at the superpower Russia as the tragic hero?
The Russians played a major role in helping liberating countries and concentration camps from the Nazis. Prisoners in the camp would hear rumors and even get excited that the Russians were coming.
So Russia was similar to a flawless superhero?
Not entirely. Russia didn't do a lot to help. They also did a lot of bad things like annexing countries from the Nazi control and then keeping them under Soviet control.
Like Macbeth, he was a valiant general that everyone loved and respected, but then made some bad decisions when trying to gain more power. Macbeth made the audience sympathize with him, and the audience felt that connection with him because of the good side he did have in history.
Russia did a lot to help with the liberation of the Jewish people from the concentration camps, but they kept countries like Latvia, Estonia, and Lithuania under their control and made the citizens of these countries miserable. They treated them like how the Nazis did in the concentration camps of the Jewish people.
Some of the greatest villains in the modern era are created by sci-fi writers. Mr. Lucas, when you wrote the Star Wars series, what was your inspiration into creating the Empire and its leader, Darth Vader?
Well, actually, the entire second half of the series is based on World War II, specifically the Nazi Party of Germany. Many think that Darth Vader is a representation of Hitler, and many would be wrong thinking that. Palpatine's rise to power is very similar to Hitler's. They both became chancellor, as strong leadership is seen to be needed during economic problems, like the Trade Federation's blockade of Naboo or the Great Depression. Then, they used this threat of superiorist or communists during the Reichstag in order to get emergency powers, then build up their armed forces. Then, once the Jedi have been killed, or President Hindenburg dies, Palpatine or Hitler declare themselves emperor or Führer. Both Nazis and the Empire have stormtroopers and uniforms of many imperial figures and are similar to those worn by the Nazis. What else would you expect? Look at Darth Vader more as Hitler's SS army. These soldiers did their job. Darth Vader, or the SS army, is inherently a good character, but Palpatine, or Hitler, is a complete lunatic. Vader, or the SS army, was a loyal pit bull, and Palpatine, or Hitler, was the cruel owner.
A question frequently asked: how do people become villains?
The answer is, it could be anything. A good villain motivates. Actions need to be justified. There is no such thing as a true villain who does evil just for fun. In fiction, villains have qualities. Every villain has a good side. Everyone is a shade of gray. Every villain has a reason for doing all the bad things that he does. Magneto from X-Men is a perfect example. His motivation is that he wants freedom for his own kind, and that's exactly what the good guy Xavier wants too. It's the way they go about it, their actions, that define who they are. However, because Magneto's backstory is so heartbreaking, taken away from his family in the Auschwitz concentration camp, you can't help but feel sort of a pity for the villain.
In Night, the SS German army in the novel was the cause of the innate human versus human conflict displayed. Quote, "Their attitudes toward their hosts were distant, but polite. They represented the villains by putting the Jewish individuals through unthinkable matters of abuse, work, and death. Functionaries of death. In real-world terms, often the Nazis and their abuse of the Jews is considered evil, and they are seen as villains on the basis of all the deaths they caused."